Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. The major drug companies like Pfizer and Moderna made billions responding to the COVID pandemic. In fact, global sales of COVID vaccines and treatments reported so far top $79 billion. This episode of Ignition Time is based on this article that you see on your screen from the Wall Street Journal. As always, we'll provide you with the link to all of our resources in the description section below. So, what's going on? Healthcare companies that came up with effective COVID vaccines, treatment, and tests actually saw a huge financial payoff and started to spend their cash while grappling with questions about whether they could actually continue growing. In short, the COVID vaccine allowed them to rejuvenate their companies and their stock price increased significantly. In fact, companies including Pfizer and Moderna so far have reported at least $79 billion in combined global sales of COVID vaccines and treatments for 2021, according to a recent Wall Street Journal review of their earnings reports. In fact, diagnostic sales also have been strong for companies including Abbott Laboratories, which had $7.7 billion in COVID-19 test sales in the past year. Now, I want you to know that this market did not exist prior to the pandemic, and many companies attempted to find some measures against the pandemic, but the ones that really succeeded were Pfizer, Moderna, and to some extent, Abbott Laboratories. So, what is happening? Some companies are actually investing this money in employee bonuses, in share repurchases, and internal research shows that they're now trying to develop new drugs and vaccines, and they're trying to acquire other companies, but sales are already declining for certain drugs that are less effective against newer variants of COVID, including products from Eli Lilly and Regeneron. Some treatments are likely to be replaced by new antiviral pills. Now, what is happening here, folks, is that on the one hand, I think it's excellent that we actually were able to come up with a vaccine. I'm vaccinated, my wife is vaccinated, my 7-year-old son is vaccinated, and there have been many people I've talked to that said that had they not been vaccinated, they probably wouldn't even have made it. That's how serious and that's how dangerous COVID was and still is. But the interesting thing is these companies are being cautious about sales expectations this year because demand has been tough to predict, because all the surges in COVID have now given way to lulls in COVID, which, by the way, is a good thing. In fact, the demand for COVID tests in the US has dropped as the Omicron wave is dissipating. So what is happening here is that many public health and patient advocates have actually accused these companies of profiteering during the deadly pandemic. And a lot of people have said that these companies should do more to expand access to COVID vaccines and treatments globally. They should share their vaccine manufacturing technology and try and help low-income countries. Now, a Pfizer spokeswoman did say that Pfizer had provided 1.2 billion doses to low and middle-income countries at not-for-profit prices and expects to have delivered a total of 2 billion doses for these countries by the end of 2022. In fact, Moderna chief executive Stéphane Bancel noted that the company had never launched a product before the pandemic and said it had invested several billion dollars in boosting vaccine manufacturing capacity. The company has also said that they'll provide up to 650 million doses to the COVAX initiative that supplies vaccines to lower income countries. So, what is the bottom line here, folks? A lot of forecasters say that at least $90 billion in combined drug and vaccine sales will take place for the year 2022. Now, let me know what you think about this. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? In fact, a lot of these companies are not only having sales, but they're trying to expand their production capacity and they expect to make even more money. Moderna actually gave employees at the manager level and below a one-time bonus in January, and they're using the money they make from vaccines to double, yes, you heard that right, to double spending on research and development, to acquire other companies and license other products, and to buy back their own stock, which, by the way, is a strategy that is perfectly legal and that companies do. They actually use extra cash flow to buy back their own stock and then they raise the price of their own stock for their shareholders. In fact, what Moderna is doing is trying to develop a new vaccine which will be a combination of the flu vaccine and COVID vaccine, and they are testing it right now. In fact, according to Mr. Bancel, what you're going to see is really a huge expansion of the pipeline. Cash is a thing we've been lacking to scale this platform, and now we have it. So now we're going to invest as much as we can. Moderna, I want our viewers to know, has about $17.6 billion in cash equivalents and investments, or about 13 times the amount that they had prior to the pandemic. Its workforce has more than doubled from a year ago to 3,000 employees. In fact, New York-based Pfizer, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies before the pandemic, reported $36.8 billion in global sales for the COVID vaccines. And they recently introduced the antiviral pill Paxlovid, which has shown strong efficacy in clinical trials. In fact, Pfizer expects combined sales from these COVID products to be at least $54 billion in 2022. And by the way, that amount exceeds total total revenue for most other drug companies. In fact, the expected COVID sales could push Pfizer's total company sales over $100 billion for the first time in their history. They're basically making a ton of money. In fact, Mizuho America's analyst Vamil Divan said it's almost like another Pfizer that you're adding on top of Pfizer. In fact, Pfizer has also rewarded employees. They're providing a one-time COVID-19 bonus to employees who are not normally eligible for bonuses, and they are planning to use all this extra cash to do the same thing Moderna is doing, which is to acquire other companies and to pursue licensing deals. They're basically going to be adding drugs in other areas like oncology, immunology, and rare diseases. Basically, they're going to try and help fight autoimmune diseases, fight cancer, and they're going to come up with new drugs. That is what they're going to do. Here's a quote from Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla. He said this on the company's earnings call last month. He said, acquisitions are obviously very much in the cards, but strategic partnerships and alliances are as well. And so basically, folks, Ronnie Gall, a Bernstein analyst, said that companies are asking themselves, how do we turn this into an ongoing business and how big will it be? Because if the pandemic transitions into an endemic, in other words, something we have to deal with, companies may sell fewer doses of drugs and vaccines, but they can offset that by simply raising their prices. And that is where things stand right now. Now, let me know whether you think these companies should actually make all the money they're making, because after all, they did come up with the vaccines, or do you feel that it's unfair they make so much money and they should either be charging less for the vaccines to low-income countries? By the way, we in America, we don't have to pay for the vaccine because our government paid for our vaccine doses, so we haven't actually had to pay for the vaccine, but it has indirectly come out of our own pocket, because when the US government pays for it, guess who's paying for it? You and me, because that's taxpayer dollars at work. And these companies make plenty of money when they sell these vaccines to other countries all over the world, because guess what? Those countries are going to pay top dollar, unless they're low-income countries, in which case these pharmaceutical companies are, at least what they say they seem to be doing, is they're doing the right thing. Let me know what you think in the comment section below of all this money. It's like it's raining money. It's raining money for these companies. Let me know what you think of all of these companies making so much money, whether you agree or disagree. Please click the like button. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications. It is raining money for Pfizer, for Moderna, and for all of these companies, including Abbott Laboratories. Let me know whether you agree or disagree with this and what your thoughts are. Please click the like button. Please click subscribe. Please enable notifications. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.